introduced as the other half of Vlambeer, the indie game company, and we're happy to have you here. And the topic of today will be how streaming is used in game development and game marketing and whatnot. But also Rami promised to not only cover that, but also go a bit into a demotivational speech about the toughness of making games. So it's going to be really interesting, and I hope you'll also have lots of questions to Rami at the end. Are we good to go? Yeah. Cool. Let's do it.
Hi. Before we get started, I don't know you, but I would like to know you because I'm going to be talking to you for the next hour or so. So I'm going to assume all of you are game students, just by raise of hand. Who of you are not in games, but in another field? What kind of fields are you in? Automation?
I'm in media.
Media. How many of you are in a creative field or business, or going to be in a creative field or business? Okay. So this part of what I'm going to be talking about is live streaming, casting of gameplay to an online service such as Twitch, which is a huge thing in marketing and media nowadays. It's probably one of the fastest growing markets and creative markets in the world. I also wanted to give a little motivational speech, and I think I'm going to do that first, just to get it out of the way. So this is going to apply to pretty much every creative. It's also going to apply to pretty much every student. I'm going to focus on games and independent games because that's what I work in, so that's what I know best. So the talk is going to be called How to Survive Your First Indie Game for Dummies, version 2.0. And I don't know, I'm going to assume that a lot of you have seen talks here, and a lot of talks are given by people who have done great work in their field, and as such that most of the talks you listen to are about success and how to get success. So I don't want to talk about success, I want to talk about failure. And I most specifically want to talk about your failure. So here's the thing. If you're going to be starting an indie game studio or a creative company, the large majority of creative companies or indie game studios do not even survive their first game. Many don't survive their first year. And if you're going to be starting a creative company or an indie games business, that very likely includes your indie game business or your indie game or your creative company. And to be honest, that could have also been true for my indie game company, but for a variety of reasons, some of which are in my control and many of which are not, my company wasn't a failure. So I do want to point out that doesn't mean that you should not try. It just means that you need to really understand if you're going to go into a creative business, chances are you're probably going to fail. Okay? Y'all good? Excited for this talk? Good. So let's talk about a good photo. This is a photo I took. It's a pretty good photo. I'm happy with it. It has this pretty good composition, good light, good subject. What's important to understand about this photo is that I'm not going to make money with this because it's not a great photo. Which, if I spent 3 more minutes on setting it up, it could have been a great photo. But honestly, the subject isn't that relevant, and I'm not really promoting myself as a professional photographer. I just saw a pretty thing and I shot a photo, right? That's all I did. So this photo is much better. It's made by somebody called Yudong Louis, and it has a lovely composition, has good light, and I have to say it's a great feeling of drama and tension, great use of perspective in the foreground and the background. Perfect light. Now here's the thing. Yudong is also not going to make money with this photo because they uploaded it with a Creative Commons license on a photo sharing website called 500 Pixels. So Yudong clearly likes photography a lot more than I do. They spend a lot of time perfecting and practicing their craft. They're also not going to make money. So who has ever seen this photo? Just raise your hand if you've seen this photo. So this is a photo made by somebody named Joe Rosenthal. And it is a photo taken at the planting of the US flag at Iwo Jima at the end of a major battle fought during World War II. And it's a very special photo in many ways. It remains the only photo to win a Pulitzer Prize in the same year it was taken. That has never happened before that, and it has never happened again since. And as you might have guessed from how many people recognized it, it is often presumed to be the most recognizable photo in all of the history of mankind. This is the photo that most people on Earth will recognize as having seen it before. So how much do you think Joe Rosenthal made with this photo? Guess? Somebody? Just shout a number. 500 bucks? Nothing? It's a bit better than that. He made approximately, he guesses, $6,000, of which 4,200 were direct earnings, 1,000 were prize money, and $700 were doing interviews about the photo. Now, I know a lot of people, when they hear this, they go, yes, but this was 1945 and inflation and stuff like that. So, okay, if you adjust for all of that, it's $132,400. Sounds a lot better, but when you think for a moment about the fact that this is the single most recognizable photo in the history of mankind, $130,000 isn't that much. In fact, if you were running a small studio or small creative business out of $132,000, you're trying to run it for a year, you can't have that many employees. So, okay, there's bad news. Indie games is like photography. Creative business is like photography. More people today can do our job with the tools they find on the internet than ever before. If you've never made a game before, you can download Unity or Game Maker today. Tomorrow you can be making games. If you've never edited a video before, Movie Maker comes with Windows. And you can easily get a trial access to any movie editing program anywhere. Today, tens of thousands of people are making games. I spend a lot of time traveling around the world, getting to know people making games in places that most people don't go to for the games industry. This week, I was in Croatia. Today I'm here. In 2 days, I'm going to be in Berlin. In 4 days, I'm going to be in Australia. And in 6 days, I'm going to be in San Francisco. And all I'm going to be doing is talking to people that make games. I've been to over 250 places around the world, and in all of those places, there were people competing with you. And to be honest, most of those people don't make money doing this, because they do it for fun, or they don't do a good enough job to make money, or the circumstances aren't good enough to make money. And for those that do earn money, most don't earn very much, or not enough to keep themselves going. Only very few make enough to do this, a creative job, as a living. Now, that might sound scary, and it might sound abnormal. It might sound like something has broken and there's no longer work in this industry, but the truth is this is not abnormal. The truth is that you only hear about success. And because you only hear about success, creative industries sound easy. Because all you need to do is take a good photo, right? All you need to do is make a good game, make a good video, prepare a good installation. That's all you need to do. Because that's the story you read over and over. If people ask me how I became the developer I am, I would tell you that I dropped out of school. I would also tell you that that was a very bad idea, that you shouldn't do it. But if somebody interviews me and they hear that sentence, they're just going to write down that. Right? They're just going to write down school dropout. When people talk about big hits in the games industry, they don't talk about the 7 years that people spent making small games that were honestly shit. No, they talk about the one game that did well. So, a lot of people say that over the years, now that game design, creative media has become easier and easier, it has gotten worse. And honestly, I don't care whether it has gotten worse. It's not important whether it has gotten worse. What is important is that you, if you are going to try and make a living in a creative industry, that you understand that this is hard, that this is not going to be easy. So, who here studied game design? Raise your hand one more time. Okay, so who has seen this? So I'm going to open this. It's probably going to make a noise. That wasn't too bad. So this is a simplified model of a game feedback loop. There's many versions of this, but effectively what you need to know is that you have what the player already knows, what the game tells them, how the player processes that with information they have, and how the game feeds back that information to the player. So it's the input, the output, the way the game processes data, and the player processes data. This is a version by Raf Koster. And Raf Koster is the creator of Ultima Online. He was the creative director for Star Wars Galaxies. And he is literally the writer of the book on fun. If you ever want to read a book on fun, Theory of Fun for Game Design was a book by Raf Koster. And if you want to be a game designer, let me tell you, Raf is far better than you. And worse, Raf is currently an independent game designer. So he has a better chance than you to get attention from anybody. So this is a tweet. It's a tweet by a guy named Davey Wreden. Davey Wreden announced his new game, The Beginner's Guide, about a year ago. And he announced it in a tweet. He announced it 2 days before he launched it. Many people thought it was a brilliant media campaign, a brilliant promotional campaign, because there was no news till 2 days in advance, and then all the news there was a single tweet. So people were curious. And here's the thing, that is really smart. It is really clever. And it is different. But it only works if you're a Davey Wreden. Because Davey Wreden is also the creator of a game called The Stanley Parable, which ended up being a huge hit and won pretty much every possible award in the year it came out. So he understands this PR game. And you know what, Davey? If you want to be a game developer, Davey's currently competing with you. Because Davey is an independent game developer. He recognizes this art. So this is made by somebody named Jen Z, and Jen Z is the art director for Supergiant Games, and she directed the art style for games such as Bastion and Transistor. And Jen Z is super well respected for her art. She's well acclaimed, and she has several well-received titles that she worked on, and she's probably a better artist than you. And Jen is currently competition for you. Because Jen is also an independent developer, and her art has a better chance of getting attention than yours. This is a video game in 2 colors. And it's called the Obra Dinn, and it's being created by a guy named Lucas Pope. And Lucas Pope is the creator and programmer of an indie hit called Papers, Please, which is literally a game about stamping passports. So Lucas Pope is working on this game. And this game is highly anticipated, even though it might not look like it. Here's the thing, Lucas is a phenomenal programmer, and he's going to pull this game off, and he's going to do it well. And Lucas, today, is your competition. And he's probably a better programmer than you. So here's the thing. If I say it this way, this sounds pretty scary, right? Because every job you might want to do in the world, every creative job, there's somebody who's better than you. Not just somebody, there are thousands of people that are better than you. And when you get out of school, when you're done, when you graduate, Those people are going to be fighting for the same jobs you might get, or you might want. Now, when I started this talk, I talked about how normally when you see a speaker, you only hear their successes, right? I just did the same thing. And it's called survivorship bias. I just told you about 4 separate success stories. For each of those success stories, there are tens of thousands of people who tried and didn't do it, or didn't do as good of a job as these people. Now, to even things out a bit, I thought I would go and look up how much mistakes I made at Vlambeer, at my own game studio. So at Vlambeer, I do a few things. I'm the programmer, I do the business, I do the marketing, and I kind of do the production, you know, the overall, keeping the team together, keeping everybody happy, making sure that the game is going on schedule and on budget. So a lot of my failures can be easily expressed in how much money I cost the company. So how much money do you think in 7 years I have cost my game studio? Make a guess. Give me a number. Anybody? 700,000? Higher, lower? Couple million? No, not including flying. No, I did some research. It's approximately 1.3 million. It's just basic mistakes I made. Deals I should have taken, deals I did take. A game of ours that I forgot to market is a mistake. A game of ours that got stolen because I forgot to market it, and then somebody else made it and made $1 million on like the first day or something. You know what? Shit happens. Sure, it's $1.3 million, but I'm still here, still making stuff. It's easy to worry about failing, but I want you to not worry about that, because you are. You are going to fail. You're probably failing right now. Maybe not class, but maybe setting up your own expectations for what's going to happen after school. Maybe you have dreams that are, honestly, in every possible interpretation, ridiculous for somebody who's about to graduate. You know what? It's fine. It's fine. Just make sure that when you fail, you don't take that as a personal insult. You take that as a lesson. When you create anything creative, you iterate, right? You don't do everything right in one go. You don't come up with the best game design in one go. You don't make the best cut of a video in one go. You don't make a song in one go. No, you try, and you see what's wrong, and you fix it. Life is the same way. Try, fail, fix it. So, for a lot of you, I'm going to assume that your immediate goal is some form of success, and I want you to adjust that goal. I want you to prepare for failure, to be ready for it, to create for success. So don't just build with a defeatist attitude. Don't make things because you're going to fail. No, make things because you care for them. Make things because you believe in them. But know that very likely they're not going to work out. And if you can, build a space for your own work. Because no matter where you work, no matter what work you do, there are other people that care about the same things as you. I made a game about fishing with machine guns, which honestly, I didn't think anybody would enjoy that. And it turned out to be a hit game, because it turns out a lot of people want to go fishing with machine guns. I don't know why that is. But as we built our company, as we build our brand, as we built a personality for people to attach to, they started coming to us. And now every time you release something new, a few more people talk about it. Every time you release something new, we make more money. Every time we release something new, more people pay attention. I'm sure you've been told in some way or form to make a portfolio of your work. I'm sure you've been told to make it either diverse, make your portfolio as diverse as possible, right? Or you've been told to make your portfolio as focused as possible. You know what? Doesn't matter. What you do is you make your portfolio the kind of work you want to make in the future. And then you send it to people who might believe in that mission of yours. That's how you do a portfolio. You create a space for you, for your own work. And then even then, if you do all the things I say, and honestly, you probably don't stand a chance anyway. And you're probably still going to fail. And that doesn't mean you should give up. And it doesn't mean you should quit school. And it also doesn't give you should quit your day job. Please keep doing your day job until you make enough money to do whatever you want to do later. So I've got some feedback for all of you. The first part is you don't know enough. Does anybody who works in, a number of you work in games, how many of you know what the average share is that you get as a game developer on Steam? If you sell a game on Steam, they keep a percentage, you get a percentage. How much is that percentage?
Is it like 66%?
Sorry?
Is it like 66?
66? No, it's close. I'm technically not allowed to say, so I can tell you that Steam keeps more than 29 and less than 31%. So, does anybody know the difference between Sony Computer Entertainment Europe and Sony Computer Entertainment in America? I tell you there's a lot, and if you're ever going to be releasing a PlayStation game, you're going to be hating that distinction. I'm also not allowed to tell you about what that is. I can tell you there's a lot of differences. We actually have a nice effect for this. It's called the Dunning-Kruger curve. Who knows this one? Great. So I like this thing a lot because it basically is the graph that explains how much you think you know versus how much you actually know. So how many of you play an instrument? I wanted to learn guitar when I was a kid, right? And when I first picked up a guitar, I knew that I was shit because I'd never played a guitar. I didn't even know how to hold it, right? So that's point A. I know nothing, but I also know I know nothing. And then when I started practicing, I found a bunch of online tutorials and I learned a really shitty song. It was a song I liked. It was really easy on the guitar. So then, as soon as I learned that, I thought I was the best. Because clearly it only took me a few days to get a hang of it. I can play any song, right? All I need to do is find the online tutorial, follow it for a few days, I'm the best. So that's B. And eventually I continued practicing, and turned out there were a lot of songs that I just couldn't play. And one of the reasons I couldn't play them is because I didn't have the technique. I didn't have the stamina on my fingers. My fingers hurt after like 15 minutes playing. I had no idea what I was doing except for following an online video. I wasn't playing guitar, I was following an online video, a YouTube video. So that was point C, where I suddenly realized that actually I suck. Now that red line is where you know exactly as much as you think you know. And if you notice, the line, when it comes back down, it actually crashes way underneath that. We're going to come back to that later, because I can guarantee you 100% that this is the area you are in. There is no way you are not outside of that area. We actually, it's not an official philosophical term, but most people call that mountain Mount Stupid. And it's not meant as an insult, but it's just kind of what it is. It's people that have overconfidence in their abilities. Now, I do want to point out something else, because this is important as well. The area after D, the part at E and F, we call that imposter syndrome. Who here knows what imposter syndrome is? One of you? Two of you? Okay. I do want to talk about that for 1 second. How many of you have ever felt, and please be honest, how many of you have ever felt that everybody else is probably better than you and you're just kind of a fraud? It's usually everybody. This is just how the world works. Because creative industries are subjective. It's not really possible to say, well, I'm a 7 out of 10 game programmer. You just are a game programmer. And you're going to compare your own knowledge with everybody else's knowledge. So yes, you're never going to feel better than anybody else. If you don't feel that way, usually the most logical solution is that you're still between B and C. You haven't figured out yet that everybody else knows more than you. The honest truth is, neither is true. You just know what you know, and other people know what they know. And you will experience imposter syndrome. And you will feel like everybody else is better than you. And you will feel like your opinion isn't that good and isn't that important. And I just want to reassure you that if you looked at the hands just now, most of you feel that way. So don't worry about that. So okay, because I just told you all that you're all Mount Stupid, so that's kind of a mean thing to say. So I kind of want to prove it. How many of you have ever showcased at an event? Just any event? No? Does anybody know how much a booth costs at an event? Just to showcase a video game? Showcase something else? No? Does anybody know have a burn rate for themselves? Just what's your burn rate? Average month. Anybody? No? Tail? Does anybody know what these words mean? These are basic terms for accounting, for keeping sure your company runs. A booth at an event obviously is where you showcase your game. Usually they go between $2,000 and $3,000, and that's excluding most of the stuff you need. So if you need to buy TVs, you still need to buy those. Your burn rate is how much you spend every month, not counting incidentals. So it's your rent, it's if you have an office, your office, it's licenses, stuff that you would not be able to take away from running the company. It's your salary, your employer's salary, and your estimated tail is just how long can you kind of keep doing that? How much money is coming on each month after the spike of your initial launch goes away. So how many of you here do team projects? None of you? Is you all everybody's lone wolves? There's like 5 or 6 that work together and everybody else only works on their own? Or are you just worried to raise your hand by now? So if you work in a team, I'm going to guarantee you that your team is too big. How many of you work in a team that's more than 4 people? Okay, why? Four is a lot of people. You can have a programmer, designer, an artist, a musician. If you want to be making a video game, that should be enough. In fact, in most fields, 4 people should be enough to get a basic project off the ground, especially on the scale that you're working as a student. Now, if your school forces you to work in teams of like 7 or 8 people, that's fine, because they have to teach you stuff as well, including that some sizes of teams are too big. But something I hear very often is if people have a project that they were doing at school, they were a team of 7, it was a really cool project, and when they're done with school, they turn it into a company. You know what happens? The company dies. You know why the company dies? Because the burn rate, those 7 salaries you have to pay, are too much. So here's what you do. You take those 7 people, you sit them down around the table, and you say, who wants out? And if nobody wants out, you're going to have a really awkward conversation deciding who goes out. And then you offer them a deal. And if you can't do that, that's great. Just give up right now, because it's not going to work. If you're already wasting money because you couldn't have the first awkward conversation in running your business, you're not going to run a business. Because running business sucks. Running business is having a friend who you really like, but you're running out of money, so you have to let them go. And if you can't sit down and have a conversation with somebody that is of that caliber, running a business is just going to end with failing a business. And like I said, that's not necessarily bad, but your team is too big. Make it smaller. And if you're working on a cool project, let me tell you, your project is too big as well. There's a fun joke in the industry that whenever somebody says, when is your game going to be done? And somebody says 8 months, you double it and you respond with that. So if somebody asks you, how long is your game going to be? And you say 8 months, I say, okay, so a year and a half. You know what? It's always true. You know what engineers are really bad at? Planning. If a programmer ever tells you that they can do something in 2 days, don't believe them. They don't know. It's programming. It's effectively magic. So, if you're going to try this long road towards maybe success, aim small. Make something small. If you say, I can make it in 4 months, it's going to take you 8. If you're going to budget for 4 months, budget for 8. So another cool thing about being a creative is that you have to sell what is effectively nonsense. Not to say that your project is nonsense, but honestly, I made a game about fishing with machine guns. And I have to convince people to buy that. And let me tell you, that's hard. I made a game about airplanes. I made a game about mutants, where you can have a fish that can roll with a guitar. And somehow I need to convince people that these are products of value, that they should spend their hard-earned $12.99 on them. It's called a pitch. So, your pitch sucks. Who here is working on a project that they really care about right now? Okay. Could you pitch it to me?
No.
That's a bad pitch. Anybody else? Anybody want to pitch there? That's all bad pitches. Let's put it this way. I work in the games industry. I've worked here for quite some years. I've been lucky enough to build a really good network with both investors and with people that make games. If you had a good pitch right now and I thought, wow, that's cool, at the end of this conversation, you could be talking to some serious investors. And the only thing that's between that happening and what is happening now is that you couldn't sell your project to me. So if you're going to be working on something creative, please make damn sure that if I come across you at 2 a.m. in the morning, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, and I have a bucket of ice cold water and I throw it in your face and I go, pitch your game to me, pitch your project to me, that you can pitch it to me. In a sentence, 2 sentences, in such a way that when I'm done listening to you, I go, huh, okay, cool, let's talk about that. And not the kind of pitch where you go, hi, can I tell you about my game? And I go, here's my business card. Please email me and I will never read it. Right? Anybody else want to pitch their work? No? So, your design also sucks. Who here understands why they're making what they're making? Just the why. What are you trying to say? Well, that's a cheat. You're a professor. Anybody else? So, yeah? Could you tell me why?
The only reason why we're here is just to make something that you want to make and that you make you feel good. It doesn't matter what other people think in the end, because if you are not feeling good about what you're doing or what you're making, then there's no point.
I agree. So why are you making what you're making?
For the sole purpose of feeling good myself and being able to do it.
So why does that make you feel good, what you're making?
Didn't I just answer that? I mean, if
No, no, you said it makes you feel good,
yeah, if there's
which is good.
there has to be a purpose. I mean, that's your purpose in life.
So why is that your purpose? What about what you're making reflects on your purpose? It's way too tough a question to answer this quickly.
Yeah, I thought I answered it. Something that you want
Yeah.
to do.
So why do you want to do it?
Because it makes you because you just want to do it. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
Right. So the why is easy. Why do you make games? Thank you, by the way. Why do you make games? Because it's fun, right? Because it's exciting, because it makes you feel good. Because it is something that you care about. Because you grew up with it. Because you want to make the world better. Because you want to entertain people. Those are all fair. The problem is that those are not the actual answer. They're the stopgap. The real answer is, why does that make you feel that way? I make games because it's fun. But shall I tell you why I really make games? I make games because I genuinely believe that there is no medium in the planet that can tell a story, that can tell an idea, that can communicate a thought in the way games do, where you as the player get to make the choices, where you as the player get to feel the consequences. You know what games can do that nothing else can? Regret. Can a book make you feel regret? Book can't make you feel regret. How can a book make you feel regret? Can a movie make you feel regret? No. Games can. Responsibility. Can a story make you feel responsible? No, it can't. Can a game? Yeah, it can. Because you are in the game. And I want to tell stories that way. I want to make people see perspectives that they've never had before. I want you, instead of being the action hero, I want you to be able to play a game where you feel weak, where you feel like you have to do something that you might be uncomfortable with or unhappy with. But I also want to make games about shooting fish with machine guns. Because every now and then I just want to do that. But that's not my design. No, good design requires that you can ask yourself the question why over and over without ever getting stuck in the loop. Without ever getting to the point where you can circle around. Because the moment you circle around is the moment you've given up on digging deeper. You know how kids used to do that? And how annoying it is? They're like, what's your favorite color? Blue. Why is it your favorite color? Because I like blue. Why do you like blue? It's annoying. As a designer, let me guarantee you, there is no more powerful question than why. Not what, not how, not when, why. What we create as designers is purpose, is intent. The only way you get those is through asking yourself why. So for yourself, and I don't want you to do this now, for yourself, if you have some time, think hard and annoy yourself to the point of really kind of getting upset at yourself to figure out why. Why are you here? And the weather is kind of nice and you're in this room. I don't know if you get points for school or something to be here, but seriously, you could be outside having a great day and instead you're listening to me telling you that everything is shit. Like, you're here for a reason. You're here because you're passionate. You're here because you care. If you didn't care, holy shit, this is a bad industry to be in then. The games industry underpays, is thankless, it's hard work, there's lots of crunch. If you make a good game, people will yell at you for being a lazy developer. If you make a bad game, people will yell at you for being a lazy developer. The only reason you're here is because somehow, somewhere, you care enough to be here. So go dig at that. There's value. There's something important there. So not to brighten the mood too much, because your business case is also bad. I often ask people, like, how are you going to sell your game? How are you going to make money? They say, sell it. That's not a business case. Ask them, how are you going to market your game? YouTubers. That's not a marketing plan. What does YouTubers mean? Nobody teaches you that stuff because it's running a business. And running a business is weird and hard and uncomfortable. If you're going to sell a game, where are you going to sell it? Steam? You don't even know how much money you're going to get out of Steam. I just had to explain to you how much money Steam gives you. iOS? Who here wants to make a game for iOS? Who knows the percentages for iOS? Who here has ever released a game on iOS? Good job. If you're going to be selling in a marketplace, you're going to be working in a marketplace, even if you're not a game developer, you should probably know how those work. You know good ways of finding out how they work? Sign up for them. Literally, you could know the answer to this afternoon. There's two ways of doing it. A, you spend $99 on an iOS license. B, you ask somebody who has an iOS license. Now, this is still not a business plan because iOS is not a business plan, but now I've got one more piece of information. So for your business case, if you're going to be starting a company or be a freelancer, sell it is not a viable way of doing business. Now, a viable way of doing business answers very simple questions like, how am I not going to die from starvation or freezing to death because I can't pay for my house? Also, your art is bad. I actually walked around a bit the school earlier. Some really cool stuff. Saw some posters. Pretty okay. Not great, but good. The problem with art is that art is not something you can learn in a book, just something you learn by experience. And there's decades of experience ahead of you that you still have to get. It's not necessarily bad again, because everybody goes through that. But if there's any word I would like you to keep in mind if you create art, is coherence. Make sure it fits together. There's a game that came out recently called Persona 5, which is a game about freedom and rebellion. And the UI just kind of ignores every possible design rule when it comes to creating a good readable UI. You know what? Fits. Because that's what the game is. The game is a game about rebellion. So the UI rebels. If you're going to be making something, make sure everything's coherent. That includes the art. And your audio is bad. Most people don't even think about audio. They just kind of download it of a free website. You know, you do a trailer, video for your school project, and you Google trailer music. I'm going to guess that at least 3 or 4 of you in this class have done that, and that would be a low guess. Audio is important. Audio is probably the most important thing. It's the most subtle way to affect somebody's emotions. It's the most direct way to affect somebody's emotions. You know, have you ever watched a horror movie with the Benny Hill theme under it? Is it scary? It's not scary. Put like a funny little song under something really spooky, doesn't work. You put something really scary under a comedy movie, gets pretty intense. Let me tell you, even though it looks kind of weird. Sound is powerful. Take it seriously. Who here makes anything that you can take a screenshot of for work? How much time do you spend taking screenshots to promote your work? An hour? Take like an hour to make some screenshots? How long did you work on it, on the project? Nuclear Throne? 2.5 years of work. 6 people worked on it for 2.5 years. They all cost money. I cost money. I need to pay rent. It took 3 weeks to make screenshots. Because I got one shot. 2.5 years. 2.5 years of work. And now here come the 6 screenshots that I get to use to sell this fucking thing. 6. That's all. And if those screenshots aren't the best possible screenshots, if that isn't the best possible chance to sell this game, to convince somebody to give me $12.99, you know what I just did? Threw 2.5 years of work away because I was too lazy to hit the print screen button more than once. You make a poster, promotional poster. When do you do that? Last day before you have to deliver the project? A week in advance? Come on. How long do you work on a school project here? How long is a school project? Months? And then for your promotion, you spend hours? Come on, value your own work. It's your own work. You put blood, sweat, and tears in this. And then you Photoshop something together in 20 minutes? Come on. And a trailer? Just get 4 random shots, put it together, and then download trailer music? Are you done? Come on, take it seriously. This goes on your portfolio. This goes on what you present to companies when you get a job. This is not just for now, this is for always. Those screenshots will linger, and if you do commercial work, they will linger forever. And if a screenshot is really bad, they will get tweeted at you a lot. People will tell you that you're a bad developer. Which, by the way, sucks. And honestly, chances are that your self-care sucks too. How many of you here work, say, more than 40 hours a week? Just to keep up with school, to keep up with work. A lot of you do a pretty good job. In most cases, most people work too much. Because it's easy to work too much. It's also easy to work too much because we care, because this is important, because we're passionate. But to be honest, being a creative is really hard. And it sounds weak to say, well, you know what, today I'm just going to take a day off because I'm really not feeling it. Or today, or if a producer comes to you and says, oh my God, we really have to get this done. We really have to get this done or we're screwed. That's annoying. But honestly, the planning should have been better. Why should somebody fix the work of a faulty producer? Right? Crunching, getting your project done the last week, those are all bad. They sound heroic. Many people like to think of themselves as the hero that works late, or pulls an all-nighter, right? To fix their project. Here's the thing. Well done. You saved the project. Also, shit. You just ensured that the person who was in charge of planning the project now knows that they can depend on you to fix their shit. That's a bad way to be in a company. Because honestly, if you're the person that saves the project, you can only do that so many times. Then you burn out. When you burn out, you haven't only ruined your own chances in the industry, in any industry really. No, you've also ruined the entire studio because they were depending on you, because you made them depend on you. So, me and my co-founder, we don't really like each other. Actually, we kind of hate each other, but we respect each other's work. I respect him as one of the best designers in the world. I've never met somebody who's better at numbers than him. And he respects me as, I don't know, I hope he thinks I'm good at my job. But here's the thing. The one question we will ask each other most is, are you doing okay? Such a simple question, but if you're doing a creative project, ask people how they're doing. It's a creative project. You're putting a lot of yourself in there, and sometimes that's a little too much. So just genuinely, not like jokingly, not sarcastically, genuinely. If you want to make better work as a creative, be okay. Ask others if they can be okay. Give yourself the space, give yourself the freedom to make sure you are okay. And don't be afraid to demand from others that they respect that you can be okay. So, you've been listening to me for 45 minutes. And in those 45 minutes, I've used a lot of words. Now here's the thing. Words are kind of weird because I say a word, that word goes through the air and it goes into your brain, and then a meaning occurs in your brain. And I can show you why that doesn't really work quite simply. I'm going to say a word, and I want you to think of the first possible word you can think of. Okay? Not the same word, not a word. I'm going to point at some of you, and I want you to just say what the word is you're thinking of. Okay? So let's take the sun. Burning ball of lava. High up in the sky. Okay?
Bright.
Bright. Who else had bright? One person. Two people. You. Moon. Who else had moon? Three people. You in the back. Yeah. Orange. Who had orange? Nobody? Plasma. Who had plasma? You? Yeah. Star? Who had star? We're talking about the same word, right? So how do we all have different explanations of what this word means? For me, it's Egypt. You know why? I'm half Egyptian. So every holiday I would go to Egypt. When I think of the sun, I think of Egypt. But this is a risk. Because if we're communicating, it's very possible that the words we're using don't mean the same thing, even though we think they mean the same thing. I can't guarantee that the words I'm saying with the intent I have is what's happening in your head. No way of knowing that for sure. Can only hope that that's what's happening. So I do an exercise with students, which an exercise that I won't be able to do anymore after I explain this exercise to you. But sometimes I get invited to give seminars. When I give that seminar, I do a challenge with students. On Wednesday, I usually get a week. On Wednesday, I tell them, you get 20 minutes to ask me any question about a game idea I have in my mind. 20 minutes, any question. By Friday, I want you to deliver a very simple prototype of the game in my head. So they ask questions. They go, what kind of genre is it? It's a platformer. Okay. What do you do? Well, you walk through the level and you jump, and you get to the end. Okay. Are there power-ups? Yes, there's power-ups. What kind of power-ups? Well, one makes you grow, one makes you shoot fireballs, one makes you invincible. Are there enemies? Yes, there's enemies. What do? Well, they walk forward and backwards, and sometimes they have different states. Some can fly a little, some can jump. Is there a mushroom? Yes. Are you a plumber? Yes. And they go. They make the game. And what game do they make? Super Mario Bros. You know what I do? I fill all of them. You know why? Let's think of Mario 64, which is 3D instead of 2D. You know why? Because nobody asks. Nobody ever asks, is the game 3D or 2D? You know why not? Because they hear the word platformer, because they're old enough to have played Super Mario when they were young, they think 2D platformer. That's not what I was thinking. You know what? This happens in big companies. This has wasted millions of dollars in some companies. This has led to the demise of some companies. Yet we use words as casually as saying, oh, it's a platformer. No, if you're going to communicate, you've got to be very intentional about it. If you want to communicate art, what do? You draw it. You suck at drawing, so do I. If I want to draw a cow, I literally have to draw a circle with 4 lines underneath it, another circle, and then think about whether a cow has horns or not, and then put an arrow with the word cow above it. That's how I draw a cow. But at least I've drawn it, because my artists, they can make that work. They can fix it. Sound designer? You don't tell a sound designer, this explosion needs more rumble. The fuck does rumble mean? You go, well, it sounds like, and I want more like, and then the sound designer knows what to do, right? You don't micromanage. No, you just tell them I need more in this sound. I'm not a great sound designer either, but I have a voice. Not a great drawer, but I can put a line on paper. If you're a programmer, prototype it. If you want to talk to a programmer, prototype it. If you can't program and you want to talk to a programmer, draw a flowchart. Programmers love flowcharts, some of them. Not all of them. So if you have any great plans for the future, just assume they're too positive. You're not going to make $1 million, and PewDiePie isn't going to stream your game. And kind of what I'm trying to say through all of this is you don't think through what you're doing enough. Yes, you're a student. Yes, you're going into an industry. Yes, you're working hard. But are you really taking every opportunity you can? Are you really working to make sure that there will be a future for you in the industry you're aiming for? Have you worked on your prototype? Are you presenting your work? Do you have a strategy, a vision, a plan? And if yes, what the fuck do those mean anyway? What is a vision? What is a plan? What is a strategy? What does that mean? People tell me their vision all the time. Their vision is usually, I want to be rich making video games. I want to be rich doing this. I want to be successful. I want to be famous. I want to make something that changes the world. What does changing the world mean? How many inventions that changed the world do you think started with people going, I'm going to change the world? Do you think light, the lamp, was made because somebody sat down and said, I want to change the world? No, somebody was curious what happens if you run some electricity through a wire. People don't change the world because they want to change the world. They change the world because they're curious, because they want to know what happens if they do something. So a lot of people, when they think through things, they think in conflict. When I ask people, which platform are you going to release for, PlayStation 4 or Xbox, PC or mobile? People always give me an answer. They go, well, mobile is the better one. Why choose? You can do both. Why would you not do both? What is wrong with both? Why would you see them as competitors? Why not as opportunities? And will VR be successful? Virtual reality, is that going to be successful? Who cares? If you see an opportunity, go for it. Because it might work out, it might not. But if you just go and look at it and try to make everything into a fight or an argument or know it better than somebody else, you're never going to get anywhere. Because honestly, nobody gives a shit what you think. Nobody gives a shit what I think. If you walk out of this room and go, wow, this guy was full of shit, it really doesn't change anything for me. It might change something for you. How many of you follow the games news? Those that are in the games industry? What was the most popular game on Twitch in 2016? Was Overwatch, World of Warcraft, and Destiny, and only then League of Legends. How much revenue did Pokemon Go make at its peak? 16 million a day, down from 2 million a day. What are the SEC and FIG? Yep. It's the US Securities and Exchange Commission. It had to figure out how to allow people to invest through a crowdfunding platform. Wow, that word is really hard. Crowdfunding platform. Huh. These were all things that were in the news recently, and if you'd been paying attention to the games news, if you wanted to be in games, you should know this. For every industry, there is the news. There's a website that keeps track of all of it. If you're in gadgets, it might be wearable. If you're in media, well, it depends on what kind of media it is. What I'm trying to say is whatever medium you're trying to be part of, whatever creative industry you're trying to be part of, there is a site that keeps track of news. That should be your homepage. Every day that should be your homepage. Every day you should read it. Because again, if you come across somebody who might help you out, being knowledgeable, knowing what the opportunities are, knowing what the openings are, is going to make a difference. If you don't know about FIG and the SEC, and you're a game developer, you want to have a crowdfunding campaign, you just didn't know about an option that might be available to you to make money to make your game. And you don't really appreciate your competition. If you're a game developer, you're competing with this. You're competing with Monument Valley, competing with Reigns. You're competing with Clash Royale. You're competing with me. And I'm here telling you stuff. Appreciating your competition is kind of a big deal, and you have to understand that where you are now, you're at the bottom of the ladder, usually. Maybe not all of you, maybe some of you are somewhat further up, but this is going to be an uphill fight, and you're going to have to treat it like an uphill fight. So, okay. So now what? Because this is kind of depressing, right? So step A is really simple. Just don't give a shit what I'm saying. This is a perspective. It's just one perspective. This is my perspective. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but you have to keep in mind that I've been in this industry for 7 years and that I have a very specific perspective on how this industry evolves. That I have ideas about how it evolves, and that part of the things I've seen and done in my life have made me believe certain things. One of the things that I keep seeing is that there are a lot of students that graduate and not always as many jobs to support them. So it makes me a bit cynical, right? Then on the other side, I see more and more people doing amazing things that have a lot of potential that could perhaps change the world. So I'm also a little hopeful. So I'm a hopeful cynical. So keep in mind that the guy that's standing here that's telling you this story is me. And that maybe from where you're standing, things are very different. But I did mention a lot of stuff, right? I did mention a lot of stuff that you could make better, that you could work on. Fix that shit anyway. Even if you disagree with every single word I said, fix it. Because even though my perspective is just a perspective, there are going to be many people around the world that agree with that perspective. And honestly, even if you think I'm full of shit, there's no hurt in making your screenshots nicer, making your traders nicer, thinking about why you are around, think about what you're going to be doing, about whether you're taking care of yourself, your team. It won't hurt. It'll just improve your craft. It will improve your ability to make things. And then, honestly, I might be wrong on a bunch of stuff. You know, when I said PewDiePie is not going to stream your game? Maybe you will. You know, I said investment is not just going to kind of fall out of the sky? Maybe it will. So, hey, try it anyway. Even if I said it's a bad idea, I didn't get to where I am by listening to everything everybody told me. No, I just listened to the things I believed in, took into account the things I didn't believe in, and then just did my own shit. So do your own shit. But most of all, survive. As a creative, survive. I don't want you to aim for success. No, I want you to aim for being around after you graduate, being around in this industry, in whatever industry you're passionate about, for longer than a year. That's the challenge I want you to take. Not make a hit game, not be the next famous whatever. No, just find a place that you want to work at or start something for yourself and do it for a year. Just 1 year. Set that as your goal. Because during that year, you're going to gain some things. You're going to gain experience, you're going to gain credibility, you're going to gain the respect and the network of others. And then the next time, even if this fails that first year, even if at the end of that first year you lose your job, you lose your company, you're going to have those things. And then if you retry, it's going to be a little bit easier. And then you can just keep doing that until eventually, maybe, it works. And a lot of people, you know, when I speak at creative events, they think that people on a stage have answers. And we don't. Shit, my story is I dropped out of school, started a company with a guy I hate, and made a game about fishing with machine guns. And ta-da! Money and fame and travel and I don't know what. Did it. That's it. That's the story. That's it. I have nothing more. All I know is that in 2010, I dropped out of school. I started a company with a guy I hated. In 2011, I made a game for an external company that I didn't quite trust, but they seemed nice enough. In 2012, I worked really hard on setting up a mobile game that I thought was going to be successful. In 2013, we finished that game and launched it and became iOS Game of the Year. In 2014, we started working on it. I know what I did, but you can't repeat that. Because what I did worked in those years. What I did in 2010 worked really well in 2010, but it won't work in 2016, won't work in 2017. I'm here. You're there. I can't believe I wrote 2016. I must have been really tired. Wow. So this is what I mean. I kind of failed on this slide. We're just going to keep going. But you're there. So don't ask anybody, how did you start? How did you start? Phenomenal question if you want an inspirational story. Completely useless if you want advice. Because things change. But what I did do, and what I truly believe worked, was I tried. And I tried everything I could, and I kept my day job as long as I could, and I read every blog post, every news article, every book. I watched every talk. I went to every event I could afford. I spent many days wondering why I was inside a room instead of outside. But I did all the things, and that worked for me. And I think those things can work for you. What you need to aim for is not being good at your field. Now, if you're a creative, I want you to be good at everything. Not super good at everything, but just good enough. Not just games, but the thing about being creative is, you've all heard the saying, everything is a remix, right? If you're a creative, please tell me you've heard the saying, everything is a remix. If you think of that saying as, you take idea A and idea B, you smash them together, and this is idea C, that's not what they mean. What they mean is, with everything is a remix, is the more things you have in life, the more things you've done in life, the more things you've read and seen and experienced and felt in life, the more interesting your creative work will be. So, if you want to be a better game designer, you know what you should do? Go skydive. You want to be a better architect, you know what you should do? Read science fiction books. You want to make better music? Go draw, make paintings. You want to be better creative? Go take a stroll outside. Drive a car. Learn to fly an airplane. Do something weird and strange that has fuck all to do with what you're doing. But go do something. Something else. Something strange, weird, something that you would never do. You know why? Because that's what they mean with everything is a remix. The more everything you have, the more interesting work you can make. And if you want to be successful in this industry, you need to be better at design than Raf. You want to be better at marketing than Davey. You want to be better at art than Jen. You want to be better at programming than Lucas. You want to be more visible than Vlambeer, than my company. And then it will probably not work. But we've already said that. And it doesn't matter. Because honestly, just survive that first year. And then at the end of the first year, we'll have taken a little step forward. And you know, it's easy to focus on what if it doesn't work out, but honestly, the more interesting question is, what if it does? Thank you. So, there's two options. Either I get to talk a bit about live streaming, or I can take some questions. What is easier to do? Shall I take some questions now, just to wrap this up? Yeah, probably. Let's just see how this goes. Are there any questions? So if you're doing creative work, yeah, sorry.
Can you repeat this?
Oh, the microphone doesn't work? So the question is, yeah, what is a good pitch? Yeah. So a good pitch will answer three questions. Question one is, what is it? Question two is, why are you making it? And question three is, why should I care? Those are the three things you want to answer in a good pitch. Generally, I recommend people to keep their basic pitch to 3 sentences or less. And I would recommend to keep those sentences as short as possible. The general way of thinking about pitches is in the form of an elevator pitch. And the reason they're named an elevator pitch is because the idea is that if you step into an elevator with somebody and you realize that they're really important, you should be able to pitch whatever it is you have to them before you arrive at the floor you want to get out at, right? So,
Like 20 seconds.
say 20 seconds to a minute. Important to know about pitches, like with everything, is that knowing the rules, knowing what a good pitch is what makes you capable of breaking the rules and doing other stuff. So for Ridiculous Fishing, my fishing game, my pitch literally is, it's a game about fishing with machine guns. And the only reason the pitch is that short is because everybody kind of goes like, huh? But the goal of a pitch is not to sell the product. The goal of the pitch is to convince the other person to ask, huh? Or to ask, can you tell me more? Or to ask, anything really, to start a conversation. That's the goal of a pitch. So if you can do it in one sentence, go for it. But if you have to do it in more than 3, something is wrong. You need to simplify how you're talking about this, because as we said before, words are confusing. The more words you use, the more chance you have that you mess it up. Don't try to explain everything, kind of. It's that thing where the more you say, the more you can do to turn away people. Well, if you just say really shortly what something is, people's imagination has room to imagine what they hope it is, and then the conversation could go. So, does that help? Yeah. Cool.
Okay, I think the mic should be on now.
All right. As a question, you said when to stop actually, when you're thinking that you're explaining it a lot. How to stop it? It's a very hard thing when you try to explain something and you're in a flow of thought. How to stop that thought and to explaining it? Like for example, it happens mostly when I'm pitching something, a product to an investor. I try to see his body language and try to give multiple arguments just to try to convince him. See, like for example, you're having a face, you don't understand my question, and I'm trying different ways, trying to make you understand this question.
Yeah.
How to stop this thing?
So how to stop explaining the question?
Yes.
Well, the easiest way to do is to ask whether the person understood, right? Because as long as you keep talking, I don't have an opportunity to explain what I'm not understanding, which, assuming that I didn't understand, is a way to keep talking and to keep explaining, but it doesn't actually mean that I didn't understand. It just means that you think I didn't understand. So in general, a good way of dealing with pitches is, or with any conversation really, is to be really comfortable with silence. It's a weird thing, but people are very good at filling every possible silence with sound because they get uncomfortable when it's silent, right? So it might be possible, and I'm not saying this is true, but it might be possible that if you had given me 1 second to think after your original question, I might have gotten it. But silence is uncomfortable, so when you explain something and somebody doesn't immediately go like, oh yeah, people go, oh shit, I should explain that again. It's also true for public speaking, or honestly any type of speaking. People are really good at filling every possible moment of thinking with uhs and ums and all sorts of sounds. The honest truth is that silence sounds smart. It sounds a lot smarter than saying See? Any other questions?
All right, something here.
All right, this is fun.
What is your inspirational process, like, you know, for new ideas?
For new ideas?
Yeah, do you have some technique, meditation, or you're like doing something fun or interesting? Or,
yeah, honestly.
you know, like skydiving. I mean, yeah.
How do you get inspiration? Okay, this is a fun one. So, this is a 2-part answer, if that's okay. A is the idea of getting inspiration is kind of wrong. Like, inspiration is not something you get, it's something you have. And usually it just kind of happens. The best way of having inspiration is always putting yourself in a state where you're looking at possibilities. So when you are a game designer, look at systems. Look at how things interact. A bus is fascinating. The way a bus drives, the logistics behind it, the way you have to manage where they drive, when they drive, that's a video game. A metro system is a video game, and I can prove to you that a metro system is a video game because somebody just released a game called Mini Metro, which is literally you build a metro. That's the entire video game. Somebody just looked at the world and went, that's interesting. So a large part of having inspiration is looking for the type of thing that you'd be interested for in everything, even if you're not supposed to look at it for it, right? If you're an artist, honestly, that tree should be kind of weird to you, but also kind of fascinating, because what is it? What is that, by the way? I don't know what it is. It looks adorable. But that chair, maybe the texture on it, The light. Has anybody, like, I'm sure you've been here more often, but I was very surprised to figure out that there's a boxing bag up there. It's like right there. I don't know why it's there, but I spent like a good 20 minutes of my talk just now wondering why the hell there's a boxing bag above one of you, and whether there's a button here to release it if somebody is annoying in the room or something. Would be a good video game. So a large part of it is looking for whatever you're looking for in everything. And then the other side of it, doing as many things where you could find those things without specifically aiming for it. So a lot of my games come from documentaries or books or even a song in one case. Ridiculous Fishing started as a documentary about tuna overfishing because there was this beautiful slow motion shot where there was this fisherman on like a boat and it was storming, but there was like sunset, and you know, like the slow motion shot of like somebody pulling a fish out of the water, like the fish is sort of like waving and there's like sparkles of water and stuff, and there's like the sun in the background. And we were talking about Duck Hunt, which was an old Nintendo game where you had like a little gray gun and you could shoot at the TV. And we were just like, what if you shoot the fish? And then we made a video game out of it and it made millions of dollars. That's where inspiration comes from. It's literally just always be thinking about what you're doing, and instead of doing it actively, make it a practice to do it passively. Just make it a state to be in. And then honestly, you will still find yourself very frustrated at not being able to find something because inspiration never strikes at the moment you really need it. Just don't worry about it. Go do something else. A writer's block, as many people know it, is best solved by just doing something different, changing a routine, starting on something that you haven't done before, and then just go from there. Was another question. There's more questions.
What's actually been bothering me through this whole talk, when you said that you dropped out of school and you joined up with a person you hate, how the hell did that happen?
That's a fun story. So my co-founder, his name is JW, or Jan Willem Nijman. Nobody outside of the Netherlands knows how to pronounce that very well, so we just skip saying his name. He also doesn't really like the spotlight all that much. So JW is what I would have called, when I met him, an obnoxious hipster. He is the kind of person that would make 300 shitty games a year and then be really proud of each and every one of them, even though all of them were pretty bad. And I am somebody who believes in the mix of art and product, who believes that you can make art and make a living, and that those are not necessarily competing ideals. So the basic version of it is we didn't like each other because he thought I was a suit that only cared about money, and I thought he was a hipster that just didn't make anything worthwhile. The funny thing is, there was one thing we hated more than each other. It was school. So our school, which wasn't very good, made some choices that just made both of us decide to drop out. They killed some side projects of ours that we were doing in our spare time, and they said, you can't do that, which I thought was bullshit. So I dropped out and he dropped out, and then I realized that I wasn't good enough to make games alone. Like I need somebody to spar with, and he realized the same thing. So we said, okay, until things get better, until we find ourselves a place in the industry, until we find ourselves a job or launch our own studio, we're going to work together. We're just going to make some stuff, and we might not like each other, but we're the best we have right now, right? And then it turned out that that was kind of awesome. Like, the good thing about working with somebody I don't like is that I can be very honest with him about what I think of his work. And even though I don't like him, I respect the work he does. I respect his craft. So I would never invite him to my birthday party, because it would ruin my birthday party. But I love having a design discussion with the guy. I just don't want to hang out with him. And I've actually found that a pretty productive way of being. It's very strange, but I think a lot of collaborations are a reflection of the people that are in that collaboration. And I'm a person that likes contrast. It's one of the reasons I travel so much, is because today I'm in Finland, and in 3 days I'm going to be in Australia. And for me, one of the fascinating things is seeing how different Finland is from Australia. And that just reflects in the person I work with, I guess. So I don't know how it happened. It just kind of did. And it ended up working out.
Okay, maybe we can still leave some questions if you still have something to say, or how.
Whatever you want.
Yeah, so if we still go with the streaming stuff, then it would be nice to still have some Q&A at the end. And as we don't have ridiculous amounts of time left, maybe we could go there for a while and then have some last questions at the end.
Oh, okay. Let me find the other
Perfect.
Sorry, I have to open the other presentation right now. It has images, so it takes a minute. So, I recently, in the past few years, have been working on a game called Nuclear Throne, which is a top-down action game. It's a roguelike, which means it's procedurally generated. Every time you start up the game, the levels are different, and you never quite know what to expect, which is kind of great because it makes it sort of the perfect type of game for live streaming. Well, you already know who I am, so I'm not going to explain that. This is what a live stream looks like. It's a mess. Usually, typically, live streams will have a camera with a streamer or a presenter in a corner of the screen. There is a chat in which people that are watching can talk to each other. And sometimes there's music. Nowadays, music is a bad idea because Twitch will take your channel down. But this is kind of the default setup. For Nuclear Throne, what is important to know is that we did something weird. We decided to live stream our game development. So normally people live stream games and watch each other play games, and we decided to, instead of playing games, we decided to show people how we make games. And it started back in 2013 with something called Mojang, where the creator of Minecraft, Mojang, asked us to work with them in a charity stream and jam a game, which basically meant we had 48 hours to create a game, live on camera. And it was great because two of us had a fever, so that wasn't very fun. And we were forced to live stream the game development continuously. The good news was people really liked the game we made. It was called Wasteland Kings, and it had these characters. And it was the game I just described. It was received really well, and everybody that bought the Mojang bundle, well, everybody's an exaggeration, but the large majority of people that bought the Mojang bundle ended up emailing us saying that our game was their favorite and that they really wanted us to continue working on it. Now, back in the days, we were working on another project called Luftrausers, so we didn't really want to work on a new project because we were already working on a project, and God, I need some spare time every now and then. So we kind of didn't, but we realized as we were working on that other game that every week or so we would spend one day just adding weird stuff to Wasteland Kings. So eventually a fan sent us this image. We actually didn't create that. It was a piece of fan art. It was the first piece of fan art we got for the game. We thought it was so good that we hired the kid who made it, who was a 16-year-old artist from Canada by the name of Justin Chan. And then it was suddenly a real project because we had hired somebody, so shit, I guess we should make this game now. We ended up with this team. Two of them are actually Finnish. We have a Canadian and 3 Dutch people. And we renamed it Nuclear Throne because we didn't want people thinking that it was the same game as the charity project. We wanted people to realize that this was a full commercial game now. So we called the entire process performative game development, which means that we went and fully transparently created a video game. So we literally showed pretty much everything we did in creating that game. every Tuesday and Thursday, we would live stream everything we did. And then every Saturday, we would release a new update to the game. So people during the week could tell us what they wanted, and during the live stream, they could, you know, make suggestions and see us implement them. And every Saturday, they would get a new version of the game, and they'd be able to play the things we'd made that week before. Who of you know Twitch? You've heard of Twitch? For those of you who don't know Twitch, Twitch is the largest live streaming service currently available. It is basically YouTube, but live with chat. It's kind of how you should think about it. It used to be exclusively for games, but now you can pretty much do whatever you want on Twitch. You can you can eat cookies on Twitch, and that's fine. And people would probably watch it, to be honest. The world is an interesting place. But for us, it was interesting because before the game was done, while we were still working on it, we were already building a community of people that cared about the game. And to add to that, the game was also out on early access, which was a new Steam program where people could buy a game before it was done. So you could spend $12.99 on our game, and then you would get the game and sort of the hopeful promise that we would indeed finish it. Because the honest truth is that most is not the right word, but many early access games never get finished, either because the developer ran out of money or because they stopped caring. We tried to make the promise that we would absolutely 100% finish this. And we had already set aside money, our own money, to make sure that we would, even if the game made no money whatsoever. From there, things went pretty fast. It was kind of strange because originally when the game started going, we only did traditional marketing. So we emailed the games press and we wrote emails and we did press releases and stuff like that. And then suddenly we realized that we didn't really need that anymore because us live streaming development was better marketing than all of the rest combined. Turns out that live streaming is an extremely powerful way of creating a community around shared interests. And part of that is because live streaming, unlike traditional marketing, is personable. You can see the person creating the game. You can see the person playing the game. People feel like they have a friendship with the content creator, even though they might have never met them. But because they see their face, they see their expressions, they learn their quirks, they learn their little gimmicks, they feel a much more personal connection with it than, say, a press release on a major website. Now, there were some interesting challenges that we ran into. One of them is that for early access and Twitch, it was really strange to have to tell people that they could buy the game even though it wasn't done. And traditionally, it's been really normal to tell people that a game was cheaper while it was in development. So you could buy it for $5 while we were working on it, and then when it's done, it becomes $10, right? Because now you're buying the finished product. Us being kind of stubborn, we decided to do the opposite. So the game was actually more expensive while it was in development. We told people that the added value was that they got to influence the game in some way and that they got to watch us develop it and that they got to play through this game for a year and a half as it was continuously evolving. We said that that was worth a little bit of extra money. The real reason, the more important reason for us, was that it would keep the community what we call high quality. So anybody who was going to buy the game because it was just cheap and kind of showed up on their radar would probably be discouraged by hearing that if they just waited a bit longer, they could get it cheaper, right? So this way, we only got people that really cared about the game. We only got people that genuinely wanted to be part of this performative development. And part of that meant that we weren't going to do any sales, which is sort of the standard in game development, which led to a whole bunch of problems later on. But what was really interesting was to see that what we explained through Twitch, what we explained through live streaming, more than anything was picked up by the community. So part of what we had was we had this forum, the Steam forums, in which people could discuss the game and ask us questions. What we realized was that if we explained something on the Twitch stream, before we knew it, our community would answer those questions for us. So instead of us having to answer every question, all we needed to do was make sure that our community knew the answers, and then they would deal with that for us. In this case, the question about the game never being on sale. Whatever you make as a creative, by the way, be aware that everybody will think it's worth less. I don't know why, but nobody will ever believe you that something is worth the amount of money. And if you lower the price, they will just do it again until it's free, because most people believe everything creative should be free. Shit. And then before we knew it, there was a Wikipedia that we did zero work on. It just appeared out of nowhere. And they were actually logging every live stream we were doing. They were making transcripts. They were writing down announcements we made. They were keeping track of things we said and then checking whether we actually did them or not. So then we suddenly had to say, like, it's a joke after every joke we made, just to make sure that it didn't end up on the Wikipedia. So it's really fun, but more importantly, we also noticed that a number of streamers had started getting a rather large following. These two had, when they started streaming our game, they had under 100 viewers that would watch their streams. By the time Nuclear Storm were done, they all had thousands, if not tens of thousands. And what was interesting is they definitely gave the game a bit of personality that it didn't have before. The guy on the left is Scottish, which means every live stream he did had the best accent that you could possibly imagine. And we actually put a whole bunch of phrases in the game with like apostrophes at the end, so you would read it in a more Scottish tone because it just sounded better when he said it. And the guy on the right ended up naming a bunch of our enemies because he didn't know the real names, so he just yelled some words at them. And then the community just started calling the enemies that. So now our toxic frog was suddenly called a ball guy because he was round, and that was it. We never got any choice in that ever again. It just happened. And what was also really cool is the guy on the right actually did a weekly video that was our update log. So we would write a text update log, and then Tango would take it and make it into a fully well-produced video every week, and we just linked to that video in our tweet. And we asked him if that was okay, and he said that was awesome. So the Twitch community in many ways is very supportive and very helpful. The chat community, on the other hand, can have its issues. Important, if you're going to do any creative work that is going to be broadcast, please have a formal permission for people. Nowadays, now that streaming is getting bigger and bigger, the laws and regulations around it are slowly getting stricter and stricter, which means that if you do any creative work in which you wish people to live stream or broadcast it in any form, whether it's music or games or video, make sure that there is a formal permission for them how to use it and where to use it. Because the alternative is that your work might end up hurting a content creator. For example, if a content creator, a video creator, a live streamer uses music in a video that they don't have the rights for, the broadcasting service might mute that part of the video, regardless of what is in there. So if you have like a nice emotional little chat over, I don't know, some sort of bad 90s post-rock song, then chances are that that entire segment is just gone. And in some cases on YouTube or other services, it might get your entire video flagged, which means you won't be able to earn money with it anymore, which a lot of live streamers are dependent on, that ad revenue. So if you're going to be creating games or any creative work and working with live streamers, there are a number of really nice pros that you just kind of get. Most of all, it's very transparent. It's incredibly transparent because people can literally see your screen. And honestly, I have to say that was very refreshing. It's very easy in games, in most creative industries actually, to present yourself as a company as people who know what they're doing, because people get kind of nervous if it doesn't look that way. With live streaming, because you seem more human, people are more okay with you failing and with you testing stuff out. So the transparency was actually really nice. Plus, we got to talk directly to our players and to our fans, which was awesome. As I said, a lot of them ended up being very, very helpful and very constructive in the community. And then it was really good for our motivation, which surprised me. But live streaming twice a week meant that twice a week we got to listen to people saying that the game was fun, which is a huge deal. If you work on games or on movies or whatever really, you tend to spend months, if not years, working on something in secret until it's done, and then you have to hope that people like it. We got guaranteed twice a week. We got to listen whether we were going in the right direction. And if not, all we had to do is like go back a little step and then go the other way, right? So that was amazing. Motivation is super hard, and being able to just get free motivation twice a week was pretty good. It was also just really fun seeing people piece stuff together. You know, every week releasing an update meant that a lot of things we were trying to make took multiple weeks and weren't actually finished in one go. So people would watch us code things and they'd go like, wait, but that's not being used in this update. Maybe it's for this. And then they'd go and create like conspiracies and myths and secrets and stuff like that about what it could be, which was really fun. Oh yeah, live streaming was a really good way for us to not waste time on Facebook and Reddit because everybody was watching along. So if you want to force yourself to keep working, maybe live stream your work. Might not be the best idea, but it worked for us. There were, however, some pretty serious downsides as well. Live streaming, if you do it yourself, is really hard. It sounds really simple. You just turn on a camera and record what you're saying, but holy crap, is it hard to do anything useful while talking. I public speak all the time, and I have to stand like this because otherwise I don't know what to do with myself. But streaming, where you don't even see the people, it's just a little camera on your screen and you have to pretend that there are people you're talking to while also making a video game or doing something useful with your life, not easy. It took us months to be even remotely good at that. And the live streamers that do this for a living have spent considerable time just getting comfortable with doing that, let alone being good at saying something interesting while doing something else. And then having to create content every week is a lot harder than you think. A lot of people think of YouTubers as sort of a cheat, or Twitch streamers, like all they have to do is record themselves and then upload it and then they're done. The honest truth is that a lot of those productions are super high production value and are super well made, have pretty high investment in terms of hardware and equipment. So it's not quite as easy as a lot of people like to think it is. And on top of that, we here have a specific disadvantage, which is that our time zones are kind of shit. The main market for interactive work is still in the United States of America, which means that if you live stream during the middle of the day, you're live streaming in the early morning for the United States of America, which is not optimal. But if you want to hit the middle of the day, you have to make it late afternoon, early night, which is also not great. So there was a lot of work dealing with time zones. And here's one very important thing. If you're ever going to do anything that is public facing, anything you say is a promise, even if you include maybe or probably not. So if somebody asks, is this game going to have co-op? And you say, maybe only local co-op, then everybody assumes that there will be full online support for up to 16 players, automatically. That's the way it is. Any even slight hint at something means that you have made a blood oath that you will have to keep until the end of your life. And that's it. We made that mistake. Don't make that mistake. Another thing that was kind of a shame, and is sort of a personal thing, but it's really hard to create secrets if you're live streaming everything. So if you like making games that have lots of secrets, don't live stream your game. It was really disappointing trying to sneak secrets in every week and then accidentally go past a file that had the name of the secret in there or something, or show a piece of code that made people realize that there was something hidden and then have the secret found within a day. So live streaming secrets, it's not fun. As for tips, if you want to work with live streamers or if you want to live stream yourself, Your community is your biggest investment. So if you're going to be doing this, spend just an obscene amount of time making the community right. And a large part of doing that is spending the time yourself. So if you want your community to be positive, spend a lot of time just being positive in the chat, in the forums, talking to people. Make sure you show that side of yourself and that you let people know that that is the tone you want. And then if people are not that, if people are not what you want from your community, don't be afraid to just ban them. No, there's a lot of talk about freedom of speech and I don't know what on the internet. Your Twitch channel is your Twitch channel, and if somebody's being an ass, fuck them. Just kick them out. They don't need to be there, and honestly, the expenses that the damage to your community from somebody, even just one person being an ass, is enormous. Because that one person is going to turn a few more people. In response to them, they're going to be angry, and then before you know it, that's just the default. So if you see anybody go out of line, make sure that you somewhat consistently let people know that that's over the line. And it doesn't have to be with a ban straight away. It can be a warning, it can be a kick, but make sure that people know that certain behavior is outside of the line. For us, like, fighting in the community was not okay. People could argue about things, people could have hopes about things, but if they were going to start calling each other's names, or they were going to start calling us names, they were out. We did that for all of development, and honestly, the community was amazing. Because at some point, instead of us having to kick people, the community just kind of shushed the people being annoying. Just let them know that it was not cool, and that was it. And being transparent actually made things easier, because we didn't have to communicate that certain things were hard. If we were having a problem with a bug, people could see that we were actually working on it, and instead of being, you're all lazy developers that don't know what you're doing, they could just go like, well, we've seen these people like bashing their heads against their screen in desperation for a week. I guess it's fine. And that was actually really nice. Like, it turns out people are very understanding of creative challenges if you just show them. Turns out that we as an industry have just been really bad at showing people how games are made, or how any creative product is made. Most people have no idea what a game designer does or what game code looks like. When we tried to create a new weapon, a nuclear throne, and we fired it for the first time, the bullet went through a wall because we hadn't programmed yet that it had to hit a wall. And the chat lost its mind. It was just like, it went through the wall, it's broken. We're like, yeah, no, we know, we haven't programmed it yet. They're like, you have to program that? You have to program that things hit walls? We're like, yeah. They're like, now I get why games take 2 years to make. We're like, and that was actually really helpful. But mostly, it turned out to be very important to budget our time. It was really easy for us to say, Tuesday and Thursday we live stream for 6 hours, and then on Saturday we release an update. The reality was that that meant that Tuesday live stream, Wednesday fixing whatever we messed up on Tuesday, Thursday live stream, Friday wrap up for public release, Saturday public release, Sunday fix the bugs that were in the Saturday release, and Monday, if nothing was still on fire, start working on the next week. Which means that we had no weekend, and means that we had no time for ourselves for the first year of it, which kind of destroyed us in many ways. So if you heard me during my previous segment of the talk, if you heard me say, take care of yourself, I can tell you that that's necessary, because that project almost took us down just because of how hard we worked in the first few months of it. If you're going to do live streaming, please keep in mind that if you live stream for 6 hours, that takes energy out of you for 12 to 18. Not just 6. It's way more than that. Because not only are you presenting and performing, you're also doing work. And those add up. It's not that because you're doing 2 things at the same time, now you only spend 6 hours working. That's not how your brain works, right? If you spend 12 hours of activity in your brain, you need to rest for 12 hours of activity. So, in conclusion, it is important to realize that not every project is okay for live streaming or for streaming. In our case, we had 6 people, which was really nice because it meant that if somebody was not capable of streaming for a day, somebody else could take over. And if somebody was tired of being in the spotlight, they didn't have to be. You do have to make a schedule. Was one of the big tips we learned, is as long as you're on a schedule, people will keep coming back. If you go off schedule once, people are gone. I don't know why that is, but that's just kind of how it went. If you stream Tuesday starting at noon and Thursday starting at noon, and you do that every time, you will find that by the time you have 100 people watching, people will be in the stream 5 minutes, 10 minutes before the stream starts, just to hang out and say hi. And that's cool. That's how you build a community. But if you let them wait and nothing happens for once, twice, 3 times, they will never come back because it won't be worth their time. If you're going to be making a game that you're going to live stream, make sure that it's a game that is content heavy, something where you don't have to work too much on all the systems and get to spend more time making music, art, enemies, weapons, environments, levels, trees, I don't care. Creation of things people can see or hear is very interesting. Creation of things that take 4 hours of coding and then result in a little cloud in the sky looking slightly different, not as interesting. So you have to put some actual work into making sure the development you're doing is interesting. And if you're going to be doing this, deadlines are not, this is not compatible. Deadlines on live streaming are not compatible. You have to accept that you're going to be working on this until it's good. If you can't afford that, or you don't have the budget for that, or you don't have a business plan in place to fund that, you probably should avoid doing this. Yeah, mostly I think the most interesting thing is live streaming is interesting because you get to educate a lot of people about the things you do. So if you are a creative, please live stream. If you're doing a games business and you want to promote your game, market your game, go hang out in live streams. There is no faster way to build a community. There's no faster way to create interest in your game than Twitch or Hitbox or whatever is big nowadays, Beam, than live streaming. So just spend some time looking into it. The best way to get to know it is not by listening to somebody explain it. It's by going to twitch.tv, finding a game or a channel you like, and just hang around in the chat for a few hours. Instead of watching your favorite TV show or whatever, just go hang around there. It seems to be a pretty big deal. It makes a lot of money. It's going to be a thing of the future. You might as well know what it's about. That was it. Thanks so much.
Cool. Now we can still go back to some QA.
Can I still do QA for the previous talk as well, or is it just... All right, so whatever questions you have.
Hey, regarding streaming and so on, it's not like completely related, but don't you see here a possible business model of, let's say, making games exclusively for streamers and then letting community interact with them like via microtransactions or whatever?
Yeah, actually, that seems to be a very interesting business model that some people are chasing now. Yeah. This is one of the exciting things, honestly, for me as somebody who speaks at universities, is a lot of people have interesting ideas that I can't see because I'm on a path, right? I'm walking down a path and I've already picked one. But picking that path right now is super interesting because obviously there's a market for it, and obviously people are interested in this, and it's an idea that has come up a number of times, but nobody has managed to do it super well yet. So if you have a good idea, go do it, because there's opportunity there.
All right, so regarding the last talk you had, I remember you saying that you got to work with people you didn't actually like very much. And you also mentioned that if you were to start in game industry, you should have a team that's small enough, right? So what I was wondering that if all the members of the team are your friends, you have known for like many years. So I actually remember somebody saying that you shouldn't start out with all friends. So what do you think about that? Does it have any?
All right. So should you not work with friends is basically your question. So Any sentence that starts with should in a creative industry is probably a bad sentence. The question is, does it work for you? And the most important question is the opposite of what the reality is. So in your case, you are working with people you like, right? So what implications does that have? Does that mean that you can be honest enough with each other? Do you trust your friends to say something critical of you, even if they know it hurts your feelings? Are the people that you have on your team, since you are friends, not all the same perspective? Are you missing a different viewpoint? It might be good if you are, say, 3 friends. It might be good to make the 4th person somebody you need, and if you pick that 4th person, pick something entirely different, right? Are there systems in place to make sure that if there is somebody who isn't your friend in the team, that it doesn't end up being your friends ganging up on that one person? Right? So those are the questions you want to be thinking about. It's sort of the opposite of what the reality is if you were working with people you didn't like, you would know they would be honest and blunt with you. So what about now? And then honestly, the only truth is there's no way to figure this out until you try it. And that's part of that failure thing, is you should just try it, and if it doesn't work, then hey, you learned it, and hopefully you learned some other stuff as well doing it. I know many companies that are just friends, and they do just fine. I know many companies that were just friends, and they crashed and burned. There's no good answer here. It's just do and see.
Hi. You already had a community before you started streaming, so do you think it would have gone completely different if you started with like, if you started a company and then you did the streaming at the same time and people don't really know who you are?
Yeah.
How do you think that would have gone?
The question is, does having a pre-existing community help with building more community?
Or if you don't have one, how do you think it would have gone? Would have it gone completely differently?
Yeah. So yeah, that would have gone completely differently, obviously. Part of community building is that it's an incremental thing. So the bigger your community is, the more effective community building exercises will be, or community building efforts will be, just because you already have people amplifying your message. Of all the things you can build in the industry, network and community, which are kind of the same things in different directions. Network is in the industry and community is outside of the industry. Those 2 things are the biggest things you can have, is just a network and people that care about the things you do. So if there's anything you can build in the industry, those should be your focuses. Because yes, our Twitch stream would have been far less effective. Not necessarily ineffective, but far less effective if nobody had heard of us. Then again, every Twitch streamer that's out there right now started with effectively 0. So it is possible. Again, if you want to build a community, you need to make sure that the people that do come and watch, that they stick around. My brother live streams, and he started with 0. And for the first few months, it was maybe 1 or 2 viewers every time he streamed, but he just kept going. And then eventually, it was 10. And it was 20. So it's an investment, and you can't think of it as something where you start live streaming and now it's a big deal. Like making a game or like building any community, it's going to be an effort. It's going to be a function of time and effort.
Do you think you would have still done it if you didn't have a community?
Yeah, I think so. But the main reason we did it is because when we were doing Mojam, the original version of the game, we had to live stream. So then when we were going to continue on the game, it felt wrong to not live stream it because we'd already live streamed it. So it wasn't a big marketing ploy when we started. But when we realized that we were going to live stream forever and we turned it into a business, into a commercial project, we looked at the business implication and the business case for it.
Thanks.
Cheers.
When raising money from the investors in the gaming field, what kind of a documentation the investors require? Is it the business plan like often in the other industries, or because the gaming field is a bit different? How should the company prepare for these investor meetings with the documentation of theirs?
I missed part of it because somebody had a runny nose. That's not a problem. It's just I missed part of it.
Okay, so my question was that when having the meetings with the investors, you have to have some business plans, pitch index, this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
What are actually the documents in the gaming field that the gaming investors require?
So what kind of pitch deck would you need for a game investor? Is that your question?
Yeah, and is it like well, also that what is the what they should contain, but also is the
okay.
Yeah.
So for investment, and then you're talking about investors, or are you talking about publishers, or are you talking about
investors?
Real investors. Well, usually for an investor, what you need is you need to let them know what the product is and why it's interesting. You need to let them know what the budget is that you're looking at. You have to let them know how you intend to make back the money and make a profit that will turn around enough money for them to make the investment interesting. And those don't have to be super accurate, but they have to be realistic, right? They have to be able, they have to look at it and go, okay, this seems interesting. If I can give any tips, the biggest one that will make an investor walk away from a pitch deck is too low of a budget or too high of a budget. And too high is actually far less damaging than too low. Because a lot of students, specifically when they start going to investors, they go and they say, okay, we have a year of work, so we need a whole lot of money. We need like 30,000 to 100,000. And any investor will look at that and go like, what, are they employing like 2 people? How are they going to make this product? Making sure that you actually calculate through your expenses, count full salaries, make sure you keep track of your marketing, and if you're doing a mobile game, user acquisition, stuff like that. Having all of those numbers there shows that you have been thinking about what you're going to do and how you're going to do it. And I think the largest part for an investor is being able to see that there will be a return on investment in the future. So that's what your pitch deck should feature. Does that help?
Yeah, thanks.
I'll try to be best. All right. So I'm making not a tractor game, but a textual game like a Quiz Up. It's a multiple choice question game for a specific theme. And I'm struggling with my designer at this moment because I'm a more of a simplistic nature person, and I'm trying. My previous application was more simplistic, plain background with nice text looking. And the designer is putting like more color into the game. And that's a difference of opinion on different design elements. That how do you capture this kind of thing? Because I think he's more effective for the users, but somehow convincing myself to sell it to others is a very hard thing.
That's a fun one. Okay, here's one of the biggest things that will kill a creative company. It's called a flat hierarchy. And for some reason, it's very popular right now. It's the idea that everybody in a company should be equal and have equal power and say. It will kill your studio. You kind of answered your own question. His design, according to you, is more effective. So you should probably go with his design. The honest truth is, what I would do in this situation is move away from this specific issue, sit down with your team, and chat about who is most effective at a specific thing. And that's kind of a hard discussion because sometimes one person is just good at a whole bunch of stuff, and sometimes it turns out you're not the best at any of the things. That all of that can happen. Sometimes you're the one that is best at many things, and sometimes it's just that this person is better, right? And then give them veto power over any decision. Not like an easy veto power, make sure they're responsible with that power, but give them the power to say, no, listen, this is what we're going to do, because you're making a creative product, and that should not be a democracy, right? It's not a let's vote for what is best. This is research, it is testing, it is iteration, it is implementation. There's no vote. You know whether something works or you don't know whether something works, and if you don't know, you should know. So if you want to really answer this question, you feel the other design is more effective, so you should probably try with that one because both of you agree. But if you're really not sure and you want to settle it, make 2 versions and test both of them. See what works better. A/B test is one of your Swiss Army knives in design. So A/B test, try it, see what happens, and then after that, when you have the data, you can just sit down, compare the numbers, and go, this one. how do you say that? Ego, or like self-worth, is one of the most logical and damaging parts of being a designer, because you as a designer, part of you is trying to communicate something out of yourself, out of your beliefs, trying to create affordabilities for something, but part of it is always in service of the user. And you should never forget that part of what you're doing, a large part of what you're doing has to be in service of the user, understanding what the product is, being able to use the product, being able to engage with the product. So keep the user in mind. If you think that the other design is going to be better, use the other design. If you don't know, test. If you're convinced yours is right and the other person is involved, theirs is right, test, and then just settle it with that.
Any final questions? All right.
Well, this is sort of a weird question. What I was wondering, what does Vlambeer stand for? What does it mean?
So if you look at the logo, so when we started the company, me and JW, we didn't like each other, but we agreed on 3 basic rules. It had to be not an existing word. It had to not include the word games or soft, because we thought that would be silly. And it needed to have pretty much no existing hits on Google. And we searched for it for months and we couldn't find anything. And then one day, JW got to the shared workspace that we were using at that time, and he had his notebook. He always carries a notebook and a Sharpie, and he opened it and he went to a drawing that looked like that. I think I can get you the original drawing, because we're at the end of the talk anyway. But what was interesting about it was that it was actually kind of a shitty pun. Let me see if yeah, there it is. So Vlambeer in Dutch means, if you spell it with an F, it means to flambe, which is, you know, when you light food on fire, you know, like ice cream, you pour something that can burn well over it, usually an alcohol, then you light it on fire and it looks really cool, but it also infuses certain flavors. But if you change it into a V, it means flaming bears. So it's a bear on fire. And that's literally it. The funny thing about that is we have no idea who made this drawing. JW thinks it might have been him, but he was pretty drunk. So it might have been somebody else. And I actually have prepared just in case somebody shows up one day and goes, that was me. Because we know who he was hanging out with. So if somebody decides to sue us over that logo, then it'll be fun. Yeah, so that's it, Vlambeer. Yeah, originally it was in plural and we made it singular because we realized that Vlambeer includes the word beer. We thought that Americans liked alcohol, so maybe that would help. That was it. A lot of great things in the world are actually kind of silly when you think about it. And a lot of company names don't mean anything clever until they start meaning what they end up meaning. Like Apple is a really shitty company name. Like, come on, what the fuck? It's named Apple, and somehow we all go like, wow, that's great design. It's what? But over time, that word came to mean what the brand means instead of an apple. And Vlambeer, similarly, is a really bad story, but for people that like the type of games we make, that little icon means something. And that's what a brand is in the end. Cheers.
All right, I think we have to start wrapping up. Thanks so much, of course, Rami and all of you who have been watching the stream or being here live.